So you do all this.
What numbers do we know? We know, we know n, we know,
Standard.
we know this.
Okay, so
Because
we
we-
just do the algebra. We just use the algebra.
So in the particular problem we were just using, we know that the mean is 4.
You square root it.
So to get the sum,
It's always that.
I'm going to multiply by the n.
Oh, yeah.
Multiply both sides. So if I know what the x bar is, so in this particular case, my n is 16. So the summation of x bar is equal to n times the mean. Just using algebra, we're going backwards. Now we're going to ask some questions. Here would be a type of question that I would ask in this same problem that she's doing the samples. What is the probability that she would spend more than 60 hours a week doing, or month, doing reviews? What is the probability that she would spend more than 60 hours a week? Or what is the probability that this number would be greater than 60? So the question would be, what is the probability of her time, of the sum of the times be greater than 60? And the way that we calculate that, make sure I write it down correctly. Because I have it.
So what is the probability that you would spend more than 60 hours? 61.
I wrote it down, where did it go? Make sure I write it down properly.
I'm looking forward to your video on this.
Me too.
There it is. Where is it? Where did it go? There it is. On that piece of paper. So if I wanted to know what the sum of all the x's were, the way I can calculate that is I can take the n, the number in the sample, times the mean of the population, plus a z-score,
Oh my.
times the square root of n, times
Oh my gosh.
the standard deviation of x.
Oh my gosh.
To find what?
If we wanted to find the sum of the hours,
So what was the exact question again? What is the probability that she would spend 60 hours?
Greater than 60.
okay. So if I change the question here, it would be, what is the sum that she would spend more than 60 hours doing reviews in a month?
You have to multiply all this.
Again, the only tricky part of this formula is this. We've done almost everything. We need a z-score. Where does the z-score come from?
Table.
From the table. Okay, so that means what we need to do is take and look up the z-score. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to look at this, and what we know.
All the information to find the z score. On this
Or unless it's given.
I mean,
if we want to know this, what we know is that we can take n times the x bar. And that will give us a number. In this particular case, it was 16 times 4, which I believe is 64. So if I wanted to find the z-score, what I have to do is I have to sit there and say, okay, the z is 64, or I don't want 64. It's the time, where did I write it? Whoops. The probability that I was looking at was what? 60. So what I need to do is find my z-score related to 60. So I'm going to take 60 minus what? The sum of what I had here, so in this case it would be 64. And my standard deviation down here?
0.3.
0.3. How'd you get that?
Because we just remembered.
Okay. See, I don't want you to focus on that number. I want to know where you got that number from every time. So this would end up being what? Negative 4 over 0.3, which is I got negative 13 point.
Oh, 0.3. I love 3.7.
4 divided by 0.3
Negative 4.
is negative
13.
13.33.
Such a way?
Negative 4 divided by negative.
Doesn't matter whether you put the negative sign or not in your calculator.
Oh, how you did it?
You got 13?
Negative.
Yeah.
Divided by.
So all
Oh,
of
it's defined. Yeah.
the last step is to fill in the blank for the.
It's not 0.3.
So now what we have here,
Which is 16.3.
what is, I have to just go back and plug it in. What's my n?
16 times.
16 times 4 plus
Negative 13.33.
negative 13.33 times the square root of 16 times 1.2.
And this all gives us the summation of x.
It gives us a value. It gives us what we think the amount of time is that she would be using. So this would be, so once I do all this, my calculator won't do order of operations.
How did you find out the standard deviation calculation?
He gave us.
It was given.
Because I'm not sure how you got the Z.
And I used a really rotten number.
He got the z from n times x. Wait.
N times X.
So let us go.
That's the 64.
That's the 64.
Yeah. But how'd you get the Z?
because he used 60%, right?
No.
No?
I use 60 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry, 60 hours.
Minus the 64 hours. You're going to have to work with this formula. And it looks at, but the pieces are in there, and if you look at the book, it will sort of walk you through through these calculations. If you struggle with this one over the break, that's fine. Don't overly fret about this one. We'll talk more about it because I didn't have as much time as I wanted to tonight. I opened up as to Megan's request, all the homework assignments that I have given in WebAssign that you can redo to improve your grades if you want.
Oh, you lost them.
If you have more than 80% on it, I might not suggest that you actually try to improve them. If you're at 80%, you're probably in good shape. You can go back and review them and redo them and work on them and should be able to do okay. There is one new assignment in there that is due. And it's called Central Limit Theorem. Okay? That one you have to do.
Are you unlocking, like, say, like, questions we got wrong on our thing?
I can't go in and unlock just particular questions. I just reopened everything
Okay.
so that you can go back in and redo them.
Okay, let's see if that works.
Okay?
I,
So the one homework that you want to make sure you do is the Central Limit Theorem.
okay.
And if you want, you can get started on that now and work through it.
Okay.
But most of them are going to be working with that Z table sort of backwards and working with the Z table forwards.
Explain that negative 1333 again. So you took 60 minus 64,
It's the Z score.
right? Okay, hold on. Let me write that down.
Remember, Z scores are calculated always in the same basic arena. And I will be honest with you, sometimes whether I'm supposed to divide by standard deviation of the population or the standard error, I screw up. Okay? Because remember I said, every Z-score you do the same basic way, it's just how do you calculate that particular standard error. And if you're making a mistake because you used the wrong standard deviation, that's all right
Yeah.
for now. And I think I might have used the wrong standard deviation here. I think this one might actually be the standard deviation, which means that I might have actually wanted to divide by, because I think that number is just too big. So I think I used the wrong standard deviation in that one. But I'm not 100% sure. I gotta go
So
back
shall we
and
use
calculate it.
Shall
Right.
we use our notes or no use our notes?
Like you basically use your notes, but like I keep saying, when it comes to Z-scores are always calculated in the same general vein. You're always going to have some sort of score, or number, or hour, or something, whatever it is that you are talking about. And you are going to subtract
Mean.
a mean. Now, is it the mean of the population? Is it the mean of the sample? So you're going to screw up and use the wrong mean on occasion. Probably more often than not when you first start doing it. And you're going to divide by some form of a standard deviation. And you're going to use the wrong standard deviation at times. Because remember, we just said it.
Right, because there's all these different ones.
We have the mu of the, what's this?
Population.
Mu of the population. We have the mu of the
Sample mean.
sample means. We have the standard deviation of the
Population.
And we have the standard deviation of the
Mean?
sample means.
Sample mean.
And we're gonna use the wrong standard deviation plenty. I still use the wrong standard deviation.
And it won't get counted against us on the test.
It will count remember when you did things like you did the rain data?
Yeah.
Some of you divided by 4 to get the standard deviation, and some of you to get the mean, and some of you divided by 4 minus 1 to get the standard deviation and the variance.
Okay.
And I gave you some credit because you did the process correctly,
Okay.
but the N was actually 120 because there's 10 years with 12 months in each year, so you used the wrong N.
Okay.
So you will get partial credit if you use the wrong standard deviation. You won't get full credit, but yes, and